Welcome to I Got a Guy podcast, a podcast carefully designed to introduce a wide range of very talented and highly skilled professionals ready to share their knowledge and advice with you. Please welcome the host of I Got a Guy podcast, Michael Drelichars. Hello and welcome to I Got a Guy podcast. I'm your host, Michael Drelichars. Thank you so much for joining us yet again this week. I know recently we have had some gaps in our scheduling, and it's really comes down to my business has gotten so busy that I just haven't had the time to do as many recordings as I'd like. So I apologize for that, and love to get back to doing a regular recording and share these with you on a consistent basis. So we'll keep working towards that. If you're new to I Got a Guy podcast, we welcome you and encourage you to subscribe to the episode. We do broadcast this on YouTube and Rumble, and as well as all of the audio platforms out there. So subscribe and get notifications so you know when we do post a new episode. And if you want to check out any of our past podcasts, we have quite a few of them, and they're listed on our website. And just go to igotaguypodcast.com. That's igotaguypodcast.com. And you'll see a list of all of our episodes. You can watch them, you can listen to them, comment on them, and certainly call our guests for their services, because that's the whole point, is to help small businesses grow and share their word and get their message out in the world. So anyway, that's a little housekeeping, and but again, I'm glad to have you all here. As many of you know, we did this podcast got started and was born out of reading a book called The Go-Giver. Bob Burg is the author, and great book. I read it a few times and really enjoy it, and it really helps. It's a good mental book to help your mentality around running small businesses. But in the book, there are 5 laws of stratospheric success, and I want to share one law. I'd like to pair up a law with our guest for the week. And this week, the law I'm going to pair up with our guest is the law of value, which is defined by give more in value than you receive in payment. Give more in value than receive in payment. And so as you get to know our guest this week, you're going to see how that marries up with how he runs his business. Our guest this week is Ron Bandyk from Grout Medic. Ron is a local business owner in the Naperville, Illinois area. We're going to welcome Ron here and learn all about Grout Medic and how he got started. Ron, welcome to the episode.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, it's great to you're here, and looking forward to hearing all about cleaning tile grout. So,
all right. Yes.
Probably not a topic that people think about necessarily every day, but when you need it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It kind of can happen gradually, the staining and such, and
Sure.
Before you know it, it's just something that you get used to, and the transformation then becomes even more dramatic.
Right, exactly. So tell us a little bit about background about how you got into Grout Medic and the history of the franchise.
Sure. Well, yeah, I was always someone who had a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, but was working in corporate America, and during the big recession and the banking crisis that happened, I was actually working for a commercial realtor, and so commercial realty had basically shut down because nobody could get financing, and so
Sure.
I was looking for something new to do, and still had that entrepreneurial spirit. Always kind of wanted to do something on my own, and so I reached out to a business broker and a franchise broker, and through that process came upon the Grout Medic. It wasn't something that I was necessarily looking for, but when I started to do the due diligence on what the business was and what the market was that we were looking at, it seemed like a really good business. And so I had reached out to a gentleman who had a Grout Medic in the area. He actually was in the area that I lived in, and I was just looking at it for an adjacent area. And
Sure.
when I did that and reached out to him, found out that he was actually interested in selling his business. He was an older gentleman, kind of semi-retired at that point anyway, and so it was a little bit more comfortable for me to buy an existing business than to completely start from scratch. And there was a connection because, as I said, the Grout Medic is a franchise, and the area that he owned was the first territory that the Grout Medic had created. We Started in Naperville. The corporate office used to be in Naperville. And so we've started, the business was started back in 1996. So we've actually been servicing the area that we cover back to 1996.
Wow. Okay, great. So it's a local franchise, and you have a defined territory, and there's obviously other territories around you that are also owned by other franchise owners.
Yeah. So in the Chicago market, there's three Grout Medics, myself. We're technically the Grout Medic of West Southwest Chicago, based in Naperville. There's a Grout Medic of the Fox River that's based out of St. Charles. And then there's Grout Medic of North Chicago, which is based kind of in the west side of the city and handles most of the city in the north suburbs.
Sure.
Um,
Okay, great. So you go it's business to consumer. So you work with consumers as they want to freshen up their tile, typically in their bathrooms.
yeah. And primarily, our customer base is residential, as you say. We do some work, commercial, restaurants, uh,
Sure.
condo associations, things like that. But certainly, the vast majority of what we do is residential business. And yeah, I mean, showers are probably the big thing. We use a steam process to clean the areas. The steam that we use is about 310 degrees, and so we're able to kill mold and mildew and clean up the tile and grout surfaces, with that steam without using, in most cases, harsh chemicals. So that's one of the ways that we work to distinguish ourselves, and that works really well in showers with mold and mildew, as I said. But we also do a lot of work with floors. Tile and grout on the floor will often get built up over time, and the steam does a great job of cleaning that, and then we can seal the grout in all of those instances to help make it easier to keep clean going forward.
Okay, well that's interesting. Because my assumption was you use a lot of bleach or other chemicals to kill the mold and but then I was concerned about whether or not the grout itself could withstand all those chemicals.
Yeah. Bleach. I mean, we run into that a lot. You're not alone there. But bleach can actually start to deteriorate, especially caulk in the shower.
That's what I
Uh,
assumed. Yeah, yeah.
it starts to deteriorate, and while it may work initially, it starts to create small little pockets, and then moisture will collect in those pockets, and over the long term, it can actually make it, a
Worse.
more an environment more susceptible to mold. So,
Yeah.
um, we try to use, I mean, there are certain instances where we have to use some chemicals, but for the most part, we do try to stick to the steam, and it works very well. We've been doing it for a long time and had great success with it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, there's all I know. There's, in the world of real estate, mold is a four-letter word. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to talk about mold. I get it, but I think in this context, we need to talk about it a little bit. I mean, not all mold is bad, right? I mean, it all looks bad, but some is not as bad as others, right? Do you
Yeah,
come
I
across
mean,
that?
most of the mold we run into in a bathroom, is black, and people think black mold, and black
Right.
mold certainly is bad, but this is generally not black mold. Black, has a really strong odor. This is, more like a mold mildew, very typical for that kind of wet environment. And so, if it's left to go, it can get worse. Some people are more sensitive, people with asthma and things like that. It can
Sure.
even that kind of mold and mildew can start to affect them. But for the most part, it's pretty harmless.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, you know, unless you really have some sensitivities.
Sure. Yeah. Aesthetically, it's not very pleasing, for
Yeah,
sure.
you talk about realtors. I mean, we and selling your house. I mean, that is a big base for us. We get a lot of referrals through realtors
Yeah.
to come in as they're getting ready to take pictures of the property to put it on the market. Because, yeah, you're right. Somebody comes in, especially if it's in a primary bathroom, seeing that, is definitely something that will turn off a buyer or a potential buyer.
Yeah, well, yeah, it could certainly turn them off, but at a minimum, it raises questions that
Yeah,
that you don't need extra questions in that environment. But and whether it was a primary bathroom or a secondary or even a basement bathroom, the reality is, nobody wants to see that in the grout. So it's important to get that cleaned up. Does it
yeah.
take a long time to clean the grout?
No, actually, most of our jobs are done in a day.
Oh, really?
A bigger job, we might have to send a few technicians there to address it, or sometimes, can go over a few days. What usually drives us to being there more than a couple days is, the shower. If we're doing work in there, we'll usually need at least 24 hours, sometimes 48 hours if we're regrouting. And so we may try to split things up so that people have a bathroom that they can use after we've completed the work. But yeah, most of our projects, are done in a day.
Okay. So you touch on something additional there. So you clean the grout with the steam, and I know you seal it after it's cleaned, but do you also regrout then if the grout is chipped away or cracked or peeling in some way?
Yeah, so there's different types of grout. So, in a shower, often get really narrow grout lines. That's an unsanded grout. If that gets stained, the staining can often penetrate in there, and you can clean the surface, but the staining may still discolor the grout. So in those cases, we will regrout those areas typically, and we use hand tools when we can. It's safer for the tile to avoid, chipping and things like that. But we'll use hand tools to remove the grout. We'll always remove the caulking in the shower and regrout it and recaulk. But if it's, sanded grout, which is what you typically see on a floor where you have a wider grout joint, something like that is much more like concrete. So it can be regrouted. If it's damaged, we would regrout those areas. And then what we usually do with sanded grout is once we clean it or repair it, is the seal we put on, we refer to as a color seal. The seal has a stain component. And so we can use that to, address any remaining staining that might occur, have occurred from the mold. But it also works like on a floor or anywhere really where we're repairing tile. You're using new grout, which is not going to match the old grout. Even if you had a bag of the old stuff, it
Right.
wouldn't look the same. So this color seal will help to blend the
I'll
new
blend it
stuff with
in.
the old so that you don't know the repair has been completed.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Well, that's great to know. I wasn't thinking about replacing the grout, but yeah, I can see where that would come into play, and
Yeah.
then you seal it afterwards so that hopefully it lasts for a good long time without getting stained again.
Yeah, we occasionally get questions about, will this, stop the mold from happening or stop the shower from getting dirty or the floor from getting dirty? And I have to, say that there's nothing like that. If I had invented that or had access to that, I probably wouldn't be here.
Right, right. Well,
I would have.
right, but by doing the steam cleaning and then fixing the grout and sealing it, they got quite a bit of time where they can enjoy a clean
Yeah.
shower. As long as you still have to clean it. You have to clean it every week like you normally would anyway, right?
Yeah,
But
that's the thing. The seal, it's not a magic bullet, but it certainly makes it easier to clean. And so if you then, once we come in, start to follow a regular regiment of cleaning, and we go through, the technicians are trained on how to try to educate the customers when we're done on, what they need to do for the particular project that we're working on so that they can keep it looking, like we're leaving it when we leave the home.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, that's fascinating and really good information. I appreciate you going through that detail. Um, we're gonna take a break here in a minute, but before we do take our commercial break, I want to make sure that our listeners can know how to get a hold of you if they wanted to reach out to you. And I know you have a specific territory, but if we can just, I don't know if you want to provide a general number or one specifically to your office, but we got people listening to us from all over the country, and so some of those calls may be outside of
Yeah.
your area, but nonetheless, probably
Yeah.
have some
So,
advice.
I mean, two best ways to reach us. Our phone number is 844 grout, which is 844-444-7688. And yeah, leads that are obviously in an area we serve, we'll take care of. If it's an area served by someone else, we'll forward that information on to them.
Yeah,
So that you can, because we all do basically the same kind of thing. And then kind of along the lines of your the podcast here, my website is groutguy.com, my
okay,
local
okay.
website. So I got a guy too.
Groutguy.com.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so you can fill out a form and we'll call you there, or there's a way that you can actually go online and schedule a free estimate right there, anytime, 24/7.
Okay, great. Well, that's awesome. I will put that information in the show notes so our listeners can see that when they, if they were downloaded on Apple Podcast or Spotify or what have you. But also for those that are watching the podcast, they'll see it on the screen. So your information will be shared there, and they'll be able to reach out to you. And as I mention every episode to our listeners, if you do call Ron, make sure you tell him you heard about him here first on I Got a Guy podcast. So we know how the leads where they come from. It's just important for small businesses to know where their opportunities generate from. So we keep investing in those areas that are working. So let's take a short break, a little commercial break from our sponsor, and then we'll come back. We'll continue. We'll talk about some successes, and I'm sure you have some pretty crazy stories, Ron, over the years. You've been doing it a long time, so if you can share a couple of those stories with us, we'll be back in a minute or so, and we'll go from there. So we'll be right back. Thank you for listening to I Got a Guy podcast. I hope you're getting a lot of knowledge from this week's guest. But now a word from our sponsor. If your business uses heavy equipment as part of its daily routine, sadly, I don't need to educate you on the reality that this equipment has been the focus of many local thieves either. Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions works with business owners that own commercial vehicles and heavy equipment. We help these business owners enhance their growth and profit through the use of GPS tracking technology. Recovering a stolen asset is just one way we contribute to the bottom line of the business. Our GPS tracking units used in heavy equipment are weather tight so they can handle the elements and even have an internal battery to continue to report its location should the battery in the asset be disconnected. We have several examples of the benefits of GPS tracking in heavy equipment. Reach out to Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions for a detailed discussion about our options and to see if it makes sense for your business. You can find Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions at precisefleettracking.com. That's precisefleettracking.com. Or call us at 847-865-6008. Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions. GPS tracking made simple. Now, back to the show. Okay, we are back. Thank you for sticking with us. I am Michael Drelichars, host of I Got a Guy podcast. We're here with Ron Bandyk from Grout Medic. Ron has been in the business a long time. He's got great history with his business and helping people get their grout in their showers and their floors nice and clean and sanitary and sealed properly. So, Ron, thank you for sharing all that detail with us in the first half of the episode.
Oh, you're very welcome.
It was great information, and I pride myself on bringing new types of guests in all the time. And you are the first grout guy to come in to our show, and so I'm anxious. I'm happy for that because I like to keep it varied. We're happy to have repeat business and even competitors sharing their perspectives, but love to keep it fresh and new and new information. So thanks for that. So we talked before the break. If you can, I'm sure you've got a whole host of horror stories and or some really good stories you want to share with us. If there's something you can share with us, that just we want to help our listeners kind of get their arms around what you do and how you help them with your services.
Sure. Yeah, I was thinking about this a little bit, trying to think about what could be a good story. A lot of what we do is very visual, and so when I go into a home with to do an estimate, I have an iPad that has a lot of before and after pictures. But one of the sets of pictures that I have from that was from some time ago. But we did work for a couple, a younger couple, and we just went in to do what we call a shower touch up. So we would steam clean the tile and grout in their shower, remove and replace the caulk, and then seal the grout. And they were very impressed with the results. And the wife, called us back afterwards and said, that they were so happy with what we did that she wanted us to go into the house that was owned by her father and her brother, and they were living in that house together, and it was in pretty bad shape. And we hear that a lot, but when she sent some pictures along, you could see, it looked like it had been neglected for quite some time. There was mold everywhere. The shower pan was stained with mold, and we did go in and use our steam. I mean, it was more than just our basic job. It was a pretty heavy duty hit of steam, and probably did use some chemicals to clean the shower pan as well. We have a two-part process we can use for that, but we were able to really create night and day with the shower. We were able to really get out all the mold and mildew, redo the caulking, and clean some of the stained areas where you would be pretty surprised to be able to see the transformation. And they were very, very thankful to have us come in and do that. It was, I would say generally, men are not our target audience because they can sometimes let things go maybe a little bit further
Yeah.
than you might want. And this was, I think we were talking earlier, like a college dorm. This kind of looked like what I would say a college dorm could get to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I was talking with my daughter over the weekend, coincidentally, and she was talking about in the dorms and how she had her senior year, how she prided herself on taking the shortest showers possible because she wanted to spend the least amount of time in those nasty showers. And
Yeah.
and she said that some of the dorms they were cleaning them weekly, but they just didn't clean them to not to certainly the level that you clean when you steam the grout. And
Yeah.
and when you have 20 girls you using the shower, I mean it's just
Yeah, soap gets on the walls that can build up over time, and
sure,
just it's warm and it's wet, and that's where you can get mold. And
probably not much
with
ventilation.
right, right, yeah,
So it's
that we see that with houses where these showers are built and they're kind of off in a corner and kind of isolated. You just don't get the airflow that you need to get the area dry quickly.
well, one thing that we noticed in some of the older houses, and my house was built in 71, but in a bathroom where there is a window, they wouldn't put an exhaust fan in. And I don't know if that was a code issue or a design issue, but we added an exhaust fan into our bathroom, even though there is a window, just to
Hmm.
help, evacuate the steam more rapidly. And so I would imagine that there's a number of older homes that are like they're closed off, and maybe the windows don't work properly, and the steam just and the moisture just builds up over time, and it doesn't take long.
Yeah, yeah, we go through. There's a few things you can do. I mean, exhaust fan is helpful, but sometimes that doesn't move enough air either. They do make small. We recommend to people dehumidifiers that are about the size of a two slice toaster that you can put on a vanity top, and you'd be amazed at how much moisture it will pull out
Oh,
of the
really?
room. Yeah, and then there are switches you can use if you have an exhaust fan. There are switches that have humidity sensors in them, and you can set that, and then the fan will run until it achieves the level of humidity that you set it for. So those are some things that we offer to people who have particularly problematic areas where mold
That's
returns.
interesting. I never heard about a switch that has a sensor in it. That's
Yeah, they're some, I mean, about 90 $100, so they're somewhat expensive, but if you have a recurring problem, it's something that can certainly help with that.
yeah. So the average shower is doesn't have the sealer on the grout.
Yeah, what happens, most installers, when you're putting in the new grout, you generally would have to come back a few days later after putting in the grout to seal it because it needs time to cure. And so they don't. They just are off. Same thing with floors. When they install it, they would need to come back with the new grout and seal it, and they often don't do that. And even where it is sealed, seals are kind of like, I describe it as wax on a car. I mean, it provides a barrier to help make it more resistant, but it's going to wear away over time, especially in a shower where you're running 2 or 3 showers a day in some cases. The sealing, we would recommend sealing it every few years or so. And you don't necessarily need us to do that. You need to do a thorough cleaning before you apply the sealer, but sealing it more often is probably a good thing to help.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine if you're in the shower, you're scrubbing it, whether you have a scrub brush or harsh chemicals, that's going to eat away at the seal as well, right?
Yeah, certainly harsh chemicals. When we go through with customers, we'll give them suggestions on how to maintain it. And one of the things is, you ideally want to have a cleaner that's pH neutral or close to pH neutral, because anything too strong, either acidic or alkaline, it's going to start to eat away at the seal quicker
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
make it more susceptible.
And abrasive as well.
Abrasive can deteriorate it quicker.
Yeah.
Or even start to take away a thin layer of the grout. The seals that we use are penetrating sealers, so they're designed to get into the pores of the grout to
Pores of the
provide
grout.
that
Yeah.
protection. So the abrasive is probably not as big a problem as the chemicals.
As the chemicals. Okay, that's interesting. I had never thought about that. I don't know uh, what kind of chemicals we use in our shower, but um, we probably need ours done. A few years back, I know a situation where we noticed a couple drops of moisture in the ceiling in the kitchen, right
Mm-hmm.
underneath the shower. And at first I thought the pipe was leaking, but it turned out the grout in the floor of the showers was cracked and water seeped
Yeah,
in, and that's what it ended up leaking through. Do you see
yeah,
that often?
we see that often. Yeah, you're not alone. People who have water coming through often call the plumber, and
Yeah.
obviously we don't get those calls when it is a plumbing problem, but often it can be something else. One thing we see a lot of, builders will leave grout in the corners of a shower, and each wall is independent. And one thing with us, I'm a member of the National Tile Contractors Association. They've specific specifications for how you should build a shower, and they consider that corner to be a movement joint. Same thing between the floor and the wall. It's considered a movement joint because the wood that's ultimately back there can swell and
Sure.
create a bit of
Settle.
movement,
Sure.
and grout doesn't like movement. So if it's in a corner, that movement can cause cracking, and then you can start to get water there. We see that with showers that have seats. The seat top, if there's grout underneath the lip, that little bit of movement can cause some separation, and moisture gets in there, and then the wood starts to swell even more, creating a bigger gap. And so that's one of the more common areas, a couple of the more common areas where you can get water that will ultimately find its way downstairs.
Yeah.
And so we caulk those with a silicone that has mold inhibitors, but the silicone will adhere very well, and it'll flex with the little bit of movement that's natural.
Okay, yeah, I think you answered the question I'm going to ask you anyway. So it sounds like it was a design flaw in the building with the moving, or is it just it's always moving. There's always potential movement there.
There's always potential movement there. And
Okay.
so, yeah, the specifications for how you should handle that is to create a flexible seal.
Okay, so to caulk it rather than grout because caulking
Yeah,
does have that flexibility to it where grout doesn't.
right.
That's the
That's
difference.
correct.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad you clarified that. That actually makes a lot of sense. But like so many other things, you don't think about it. At least if we're not in the business, like I
Yeah.
never think about it.
Yeah. I mean, the people putting them in, I'm sure, it looks great. You can get a nice tight line. People don't like big caulk lines. You get a nice tight line, and, you're gone. And you may not, I mean, we go into some houses, the shower's been there for 10 years and there's no cracking, but it can happen, and it does often happen. And, um, it's because it really isn't done, hasn't been done the right way.
Yeah, yeah. But at that point, whoever did do it is long gone.
Long gone. That's right.
So now you gotta fix it.
Yeah. We run
So
into that with builders as well.
yeah,
Large track builders.
yeah, yeah, I would imagine. Yeah. And in that kind of case, if they build a subdivision and its subdivision is 15 or 20 years old, you get into one or two houses, you probably could do the whole neighborhood because they've all been done the same way and
That's
had
right.
about the same amount of time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the things we try to target. I use a tool that when I close out a job at your house, I can go in and send a postcard to the surrounding, 10 or 20 houses, say, hey, we just did work at your neighbors, this is what we could do for you.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's a great way to market. They used to call that two by two marketing.
Yeah.
Always cold calling, trying to look for more opportunities. That's great.
Hmm.
Well, cool. So, is there anything new in your field? It sounds like you're a pretty mature business that's just keeping on because, but is anything new changing in the industry?
Well, the grout manufacturers are over the last several years, I would say, been really working to improve the grout that is used in,
Okay.
primarily in new construction, new installations. The goal of a lot of it is to eliminate the need for sealers, to kind of build that into the grout, and we see that, and it's certainly helpful, but it can be hard to tell, because the texture of the grout is still similar to the old grout. So we always recommend sealing it. It certainly doesn't hurt, but that's one thing that is being done to try to, make the grout more
More resistant.
long-standing.
Yeah, more
Yeah,
resistant to the mold. But the reality is grout is still rigid when it's installed and doesn't flex.
that's right.
So if you get any settling in the house, which all houses settle, you're gonna get some shifting here and there. Even a quarter inch or an eighth of an inch is enough to crack the grout, right?
Yeah, it doesn't take much.
Yeah,
Or can loosen the bond. Like one of the things with floors we'll run into is, especially now with these bigger tiles. I mean, tiles you can get, 3 foot by 4 foot tiles. Um, the way that that's set, or the movement that can happen there can break the bond and cause the floor tiles to move, and that can cause grout to crack. And so there's things that we can do to try and resecure those tiles, regrout the area, and we use a color seal often on a floor that'll blend the new grout with the old, so that it all blends together and looks like it all was never damaged.
yeah, yeah. And it's just interesting when you think I hadn't thought about this in a while, but those really giant sized tiles now, the 3 foot by 4 foot tiny tiles. And back in the 70s, they were what, 1 inch tiles, half-inch tiles,
Yeah,
the little squares.
yeah. We go into some older homes that in the Naperville area, built in the late '70s, early '80s, still have the 4 inch, tile on the floor even.
Yeah,
And they've grown. They got to 8 inches, and then 12 by 12 was pretty popular for a long time. But yeah, now people don't like grout, so they think, with the bigger tile they can eliminate the
fewer
number of
lines
grout
of
lines,
grout, sure.
and that's true. But the bigger tile does create different installation issues that, not every installer seems to be ready for.
Yeah, if the wall or the floor isn't perfectly flat, you can crack the tile
That's
pretty
absolutely,
easily.
yeah. You get a seesaw possibility, and the bigger the tile, the more possibility for that, and that movement will cause problems.
Yeah, yeah. And my parents' home was built back in the 60s, and they had really small tiles, like 1 inch tiles. And
Hmm.
I remember seeing even smaller little tiles with different colors in them, speckles and gold and what have
Sure,
you.
sure. Some of
But
that's
that's,
things
is that
things
still
like that
around?
are coming. Well, especially in a shower, that use smaller tiles because you can. It's easier to pitch for the
Sure.
drain. But yeah, we see, penny tiles has gotten popular over the last several years, or little, kind of 1 inch hexagon tiles that have kind of that old school look.
Yeah, yeah,
So that has become popular again.
yeah. What once was old is now new.
That's right. If you wait long enough, it'll all come
It'll all
back.
come back. Okay. Waiting for the wide ties to come back too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's awesome. I really appreciate all the detail. And sharing all this stuff with our audience. Any other stories you want to share with us? Any other examples or anything else to help our listeners kind of get their arms around this?
Well, I have a quick story. We had a house where we did some work, and the people had just moved in, and we did some work, but we didn't do the floor of their, like their kitchen. And about a week or so after we were done, they moved something that was a part of the pantry area that was, not fixed, but pretty stationary. And they moved it and saw, what the floor actually looked like under there. So they called us back in, to do a cleaning, and then we color sealed it, get everything looking,
Ah,
very consistent. And one of the things I guess with floors, that we do is suggestions on how to keep that. When if you're mopping, the mop in the water there is going to pick up some dirt, and the grout lines, especially on a floor, are a little bit recessed, and so some of that dirty water, often will collect in the grout lines, and it'll evaporate, and the dirt that it picked up is going to be left there, and that's where you get a lot of the consistent staining and dirt, on a floor. So we
right.
recommend, if you're going to clean the floor, we recommend actually using a little bit of Dawn dish soap, which is pretty mild but does a great job kind of loosening up the dirt and such. And then ideally rinsing and drying the floor. And if you're not going to do both of those, at least dry the floor to get up as much of that water that might be carrying some dirt, and that'll help you to keep your floor looking good for a longer
Okay.
period of time.
Do you recommend using like a steam cleaner for the floor? I've seen those on the market. Do those work
Yeah,
at the consumer level?
they do. They do. We do recommend those because they usually have a nice head that'll get down into the grout lines.
Yeah.
And it doesn't create a lot of water. You're not left with a lot of moisture there. So the issue I was just describing isn't really a problem with that. So yeah, we definitely do recommend those. And even the ones that you can find at local stores with Kohl's or such will work to help you with the maintenance there.
They're not going to be 300 degrees like your steamers, but still steaming enough to make a
Yeah,
difference.
right. Yeah, not probably as hot and not as much pressure. Not that we have a high pressure, but we can focus it probably a little bit more than the
Yeah.
the ones that you could get at a store.
Yeah. Okay. And how often would you recommend somebody having their tiles resealed? Cleaned and resealed.
Yeah, so like with the floors, if it's a ceramic or porcelain tile, we suggest that the seal that we put down, could give you about 8 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you're using a clear seal, you might want to do that more frequently, just because it does seem to deteriorate a little bit quicker.
3 or 4
Um,
years?
yeah, yeah. If you have natural stone, especially if you have natural stone in a shower, like we run into marble showers, we'd recommend sealing that every year because the seal, like I said, I think before, can wear away. And natural stone, those tiles are porous, and so we've had situations where you talk about mold. The moisture gets into the stone itself because it's porous, and you start to get mold growing in the stone.
Oh, wow.
There's things we can do to fix that, but it becomes a much bigger issue. So if it's sealed on a regular basis, that'll help to eliminate that or certainly minimize the risk.
Wow. Okay. Had no idea. Okay. Good. Good. Well, that's awesome. Appreciate the clarification on that. And yeah, one home at a time. Get them a little cleaner, a little safer, a little less tarnished.
Yes.
That's great. That's great. Well, congratulations on a great. You said you started this in 2011, right? So you've had a good 14-year run at this so far. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. We after I bought the business, it got down to it was just me and one technician, and we now have 6 technicians. We have a couple of companies that we partner with, so we can reglaze tubs, we can polish natural stone, because we often run into that, and so we do grout work for them, and they do those services for us. It works out well.
Okay. Okay. Good. And so for you, a good referral is a realtor, right?
Yeah, we get a lot of
So a
work
lot of
from
that.
realtors, plumbers, who get those calls when there's leaks. And then, probably third, I would say is like, somebody who's looking at a new shower door, so glass, it's custom glass vendors. They often want things repaired. There's often something to be repaired, before they put something new in. So those are
Right. Right.
three that
Okay.
good
All right.
referrals
Good.
sources.
Well, we will try to get you those referrals as well. And hopefully they're in your territories. You can help them out directly.
Absolutely.
Be a beautiful thing. So Ron, again, we're going to wrap up the show here in just a minute or so, but why don't you share your contact information again, your website and your phone number.
Sure. Yeah, our phone number is 844 44 Grout. and that's 844-444-7688, because the letters don't work work as easily as they used to. And we have people, I have a service answering the phone 24/7, so you can call anytime. But probably the easiest way, you can do it on your phone or computer, is our website, which is groutguy.com. That's my local website. And if you go to the contact page, there's a form you can fill out that'll get to us, and we'll call you to schedule an estimate. Estimates are free. Or you can go online. There's a button you can click through, enter in your address and contact information, and you'll see our schedule, and you could schedule your appointment right there.
Okay, great. And one last thing I want to throw in here that we didn't touch on so far is that you're also a member of IMS for trade, IMS Trade, International Monetary System. So if any of our listeners are IMS members, they certainly reach out to you for grout services in that way as well. So
Absolutely, yeah,
another way
yeah.
to
We're
grow
a
your
member,
business.
and one of the other Grout Medics, the one in St. Charles, is also a member.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
here in the Chicago area.
So I'm a proud member of IMS as well, and certainly want to give them their just due. And so anyone listening that might be an IMS member, it's good to know other businesses where we could work with each other and utilize your services. So hopefully that pans out for you as well, Ron.
Yeah, very much appreciate that.
Yeah, great. Okay, so as we wrap up our show here, I'm going to throw in just a quick little plug for my day job, which is GPS tracking, precise fleet tracking. We work with business owners that own commercial vehicles and a lot of contractors. We do a lot with contractors, a wide range of trades, and we help these business owners enhance their growth and profit through using our GPS tracking technology, so they understand where their vehicles are, how they're being driven, etc. And do a lot of with dash cams these days. Video is everywhere. Everyone's taking video of everything, and when you have dash cams on your vehicle, you can see what's going on in front of the vehicle, inside the vehicle, along the sides of the vehicle, and if there is an incident, you know exactly what happened. And the truth is in the video. But oftentimes, the wrong individual is blamed for causing the accident or the incident, and the video helps prove and put the facts on the table. So if you are a business owner, you have commercial vehicles, we'd love to have a conversation with you about standard tracking, about dash cams, and other types of tracking. So certainly feel free to reach out to Precise Fleet Tracking. Our website is precisefleettracking.com. That's precisefleettracking.com. Or you can call us at 847-865-6008. 847-865-6008. So, all right. Well, thank you for letting me plug that. And Ron, again, it's a pleasure to work with you and to have you on our episode here. And hopefully, many of our listeners will call you and need your services.
Well, thank you very much. I've enjoyed our discussion, and yeah, we take great pride in our reputation, and the things that we can do for people really can create a transformation on your tile and grout surfaces. And we look forward to having the opportunity to do that for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And to our listeners, thank you. Make it a great week, and we'll talk with you all again very soon. Take care. Thank you for listening to I Got a Guy podcast. For past podcasts and more information, go to igotaguypodcast.com. That's igotaguypodcast.com. Please share this podcast on your social media feeds and tune in again next week to I Got a Guy podcast.